narrative.
I'm carrying this relationship alone. Those were her exact words. No hesitation, no second guessing, just a firm, matter-of-fact statement thrown at me like it was undeniable truth. I sat there staring at her, waiting for something, maybe an explanation, maybe an example of how she had been holding everything together while I apparently did nothing. But she didn't offer anything else. She just crossed her arms, exhaled sharply, and looked at me like she was waiting for an apology. I didn't give her one. Instead, something inside me shifted. If she truly believed she was carrying this relationship alone, then maybe it was time for her to feel what alone really was. So I stopped. It wasn't an angry, dramatic decision. There was no yelling, no slamming of doors, no threats. Just a quiet resolution. I wouldn't argue. I wouldn't try to prove my worth with words. I would simply step back. The next morning, I didn't wake up early to make coffee like I always did. She came downstairs looking at the empty coffee pot like it was some kind of mistake. I could see the gears turning in her head. Had I just forgotten? Was I running late? But I sat at the table scrolling through my phone, acting as if nothing had changed. She made her own coffee. When she was done, she left the pot there. Normally, I would have cleaned it up before heading to work. Not this time. That night when we got home, I didn't ask what she wanted for dinner. I didn't pull out ingredients. Didn't start cooking like I always did. I sat on the couch, turned on the TV, and waited. I could feel her glancing at me from the kitchen, hesitating. Finally, she spoke. "Aren't you making dinner?" "I figured you would, since you're the one carrying this relationship." She didn't respond. Instead, she huffed, opened the fridge, and slapped together a sandwich for herself. She didn't offer me one. Fine. The first few days passed in small, subtle shifts. I stopped reminding her to pay the bills. I stopped organizing our weekend plans. I stopped initiating conversations, checking in on her, offering to help with anything. If she truly believed I did nothing, then I would let her see what nothing actually looked like. At first, she seemed more annoyed than anything else. She rolled her eyes when the dishes piled up. She muttered under her breath when the trash didn't get taken out. She left a pair of dirty socks on the floor for 3 days, waiting for me to pick them up like I always did. I didn't touch them. Then slowly her annoyance turned into something else. She started coming home later than usual, lingering at work as if staying out longer would make the mess at home disappear. She asked vague questions, almost like she was fishing for an argument, something to push me back into my usual role. But I didn't take the bait. I stayed calm, unbothered. I could tell it was getting to her, and that was the first time I really, truly saw it. The weight she had never actually carried. At first, she pretended not to notice. She moved through the house as if everything was the same. Maybe she thought I was just in a mood, that I'd snap out of it in a day or two. But I had no intention of snapping out of anything. The little things, the ones she never acknowledged, started adding up. She was used to coming home to a clean kitchen. That was me. I'd do the dishes after dinner, wipe down the counters, make sure everything was set for the next morning. But now, plates stacked in the sink, coffee stains on the counter, the trash can overflowing. She let it sit for a day. Maybe she expected me to crack. I didn't. By the second day, I saw her grimace when she walked into the kitchen. By the third, she finally gave in and did the dishes herself. I watched her scrub at a pan, frustration written all over her face, but she didn't say a word about it. Then there were the bills. I had always taken care of them. It wasn't something we discussed. I just did it. I made sure everything was paid on time, kept track of due dates, handled the budget. I wasn't reckless. I wasn't going to let anything actually go unpaid. But I also wasn't going to remind her. So I waited. A week passed. Then she got the first email, a friendly reminder from the electric company. I saw her reading it on her phone, her brows pulling together. She clicked out of it quickly, probably hoping I hadn't noticed. She paid it that night. She never thanked me for handling it before. She didn't complain now that it was on her plate. But I could tell, this wasn't how she imagined things would go. It was in the way she sighed more often, the way she rubbed her temples after work, the way she sat on the couch in the evenings, scrolling through her phone like she was looking for an escape. And still, I said nothing. One night she came home with takeout. That was another thing. Before, I would cook. Not every night, but enough. If she was too tired, I'd step in. If we were both exhausted, I'd order something without her having to ask. Now, if she didn't figure out dinner, there simply wasn't dinner. She set the takeout bags on the table, looked at me and said, "I didn't know what you wanted." I shrugged. "That's okay." She hesitated. It was a small moment, but I could see the gears turning in her head. Normally, I would have thanked her. Normally, I would have appreciated the effort. Instead, I let the silence stretch between us. That night, she went to bed earlier than usual. I could hear her tossing and turning. Maybe she was waiting for me to ask what was wrong. Maybe she was realizing something she never had before. Either way, I wasn't the one who was going to break the silence. She stopped talking as much. At first, it was subtle. The usual texts she'd send throughout the day, asking if I needed anything, updating me on her schedule, became less frequent. I didn't ask about it. When we were home together, she didn't start conversations the way she used to. Instead, she scrolled through her phone, watched TV, or busied herself in the kitchen. The tension sat between us like an unwelcome guest. It wasn't an angry silence, and it wasn't filled with resentment or hostility. It was something else entirely: confusion. I could tell she didn't know what to do with it. For so long, I had been the one to keep things moving, to fill the spaces between us with conversation, small gestures, plans. Now I had stepped back, and the emptiness was impossible to ignore. She wasn't used to carrying this weight alone. One evening, she got home late. She didn't say why, and I didn't ask. She tossed her bag on the couch, exhaled sharply, and went straight to the bedroom. I heard the shower turn on. The water ran longer than usual. When she finally came out, she sat on the bed for a while, just staring at the floor. Then, almost too quiet to hear, she said, "Are you mad at me?" I looked up from my book. "No." She nodded but didn't seem convinced. "You've been different." I could have told her the truth right then. I could have laid it all out, how I had spent years handling things she never noticed, how I had been silently keeping our lives balanced while she assumed she was doing all the heavy lifting. But I wanted her to feel it. So instead, I said, "Just giving you the space to carry things." She didn't reply, but I saw the way her expression flickered. She was thinking about it. A few days later, I saw the first real crack. She had always been someone who prided herself on independence. But now she was slipping. She forgot to take the trash out, so it sat there for 3 extra days, overflowing. She misplaced the car keys and spent 20 minutes searching before finally snapping, "You usually keep track of these things." I just shrugged. That night, she burned dinner. It wasn't a big deal. Everyone messes up sometimes. But instead of laughing it off or ordering something else, she just stood there, staring at the pan like she wanted to throw it across the kitchen. I waited. Finally, she exhaled, her shoulders slumping. "I don't get it," she muttered. "Get what?" She hesitated, then shook her head. "Never mind." She was starting to feel it. Not just the weight of the tasks, but the absence of something she had never truly appreciated. The quiet effort, the unnoticed work, the stability I had provided without ever asking for recognition. Now it was her turn to figure out how to handle it. She started waking up tired. Not the usual morning grogginess, but something deeper. The kind of exhaustion that settles into your bones. She would hit the snooze button more than usual, rub her temples before even getting out of bed, move slower through her morning routine. I noticed the dark circles under her eyes, the way she lingered in the shower a little longer, as if trying to shake off the weight pressing down on her. She was feeling it now. One evening, she sat at the kitchen table, staring at a stack of unopened mail. Bills, statements, things she had never worried about before. I watched from the couch as she sighed, rubbing her temples. A few minutes later, she picked up her phone and dialed a number. "Hey," she said, her voice tight. "Just checking. When is the water bill due?" I knew who she was calling. Her mom. She nodded along as she listened, occasionally scribbling something down. When she hung up, she sat there for a moment, drumming her fingers against the table. Then she picked up another envelope and started opening it. She didn't ask me for help. She wouldn't. Not yet. But the cracks were forming. Later that night, she was scrolling on her phone when she suddenly blurted, "Did we always eat this much takeout?" I glanced at the pile of containers on the counter. "I usually cooked." She frowned, staring at the empty boxes like she was seeing them for the first time. I guess I never realized how often. I didn't say anything. The next day, she tried to cook. I could hear her in the kitchen, opening and closing cabinets, checking the fridge, moving things around. Then there was silence, a long one. Finally, she called out, "Hey, do we have—" She stopped herself. I waited. She sighed. "Never mind." I heard the fridge door close, then the unmistakable sound of a takeout app notification. She was slipping. A week later, I came home to find her sitting on the couch, her arms crossed, her jaw tight. She had that look, the one she got when she was trying not to admit something. "I'm exhausted," she muttered. I sat down across from her, waiting. She tapped her fingers against the armrest, staring at the floor. Then finally, she looked up at me. "How did you do all of this without complaining?" I let her question hang in the air. Then I simply said, "I thought you were carrying it all alone." She didn't have an answer for that, but for the first time I could see it, the weight of everything settling onto her shoulders. The realization sinking in. She had never carried this relationship alone, but now for the first time she was feeling what it was like to try. She didn't argue anymore. Not about the mess, not about the bills, not about the silence between us. Something had changed. The frustration she once carried so openly had been replaced by something else, something quieter, heavier. One evening, I found her standing in the kitchen, staring at the sink full of dishes. She didn't sigh. She didn't roll her eyes. She just stood there, motionless, like she was processing something she didn't quite understand. Then without a word, she turned on the faucet and started washing. She wasn't just upset anymore. She was tired, and not the kind of tired that a full night's sleep could fix. It was sinking in now. The weight, the reality of what it actually meant to carry a relationship. A few days later, she broke her own pattern. "I was thinking," she started hesitantly, sitting across from me at the table. "Maybe we should plan something for the weekend." That was new. She was always the one waiting for me to come up with plans. The one who'd sigh and say, "I guess we're just staying home again," if I didn't take the initiative. But now she was the one reaching out, the one making the effort. I leaned back in my chair. "Like what?" "I don't know," she admitted. "But we should do something, right?" I nodded, but I didn't take the lead. I wanted to see what she would do. She pulled out her phone and started searching. I could tell she wasn't used to this, having to plan, having to think ahead. After a few minutes, she set her phone down. "Maybe we could go to that new restaurant," she suggested. I shrugged. "If you make the reservation, sure." She hesitated, because that was usually me. I was the one who handled the details, the one who made sure things actually happened. But she didn't push it back onto me. She picked up her phone and made the reservation herself. She was trying now, but the real question was, did it even matter anymore? Because somewhere along the way, my perspective had shifted. I had spent so much time proving a point, showing her what it really meant to carry everything, that I hadn't stopped to ask myself a more important question. Did I even want to keep carrying this relationship? Because now that she was finally seeing what I had done all along, something had changed for me, and I wasn't sure if it was something we could come back from. The restaurant was quiet, soft lighting, low conversation, the clinking of silverware against plates. She had picked the place. She had made the reservation. And now she was sitting across from me, her hands folded on the table, watching me like she was bracing for something. "I'm sorry," she said. The words hung in the air between us. I set my fork down and met her gaze. "For what?" "For not realizing sooner," she admitted, her voice quieter than before. "For assuming you did nothing when really you did everything." She exhaled slowly, shaking her head. "I don't know why I didn't see it before." She looked down at her lap, her fingers gripping the napkin. She was nervous, vulnerable. It was rare to see her like this. She had always been so sure of herself, so quick to call out what she thought was wrong. But now she wasn't arguing. She wasn't trying to justify anything. She was just admitting the truth. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like she saw me. I leaned back in my chair, studying her. The weight of everything we had been through sat heavily on my shoulders. The exhaustion, the resentment, the silent frustration of years spent being the one who made sure things worked, while she believed she was the only one carrying the load. She had been wrong, and now she knew it. But did that change anything? She swallowed, hesitating before she spoke again. I don't want to lose this. Her fingers twisted the napkin in her lap. I don't want to lose us. Her voice cracked slightly on the last word. I hadn't seen her this open in a long time. I could feel the sincerity in her words, the way her shoulders had lost their usual defensiveness, the way her eyes searched mine for some kind of sign. I had spent weeks, maybe years, wondering if she would ever understand what I did for us. And now, sitting across from me, she wasn't just understanding it. She was asking for another chance, not demanding, not expecting, asking. I took a breath. Then things have to change, I said simply. She nodded quickly. I know. I can't be the only one making the effort. I won't let that happen again. She said it with certainty, and for the first time, I believed her. A slow breath left my chest, like I had been holding something in for too long. Maybe I had. I looked at her, the woman I had chosen, the woman I had built a life with. I saw us again. Not just the frustration, not just the exhaustion, but us. I reached across the table, my fingers brushing against hers. Relief flooded her face. She squeezed my hand, and for the first time in a long time, we were on the same page. Our story has come to an end. If you've made it this far, how about subscribing to our channel? It helps us immensely. I've selected 2 other videos for you that I'm sure you'll enjoy. Feel free to click on them. I'll be waiting for you in the next story. See you soon.